What does it take to get 3 astronauts from Earth to the moon? The answer? Energy. Lots and lots of energy. Energy that could only be provided by a rocket. A really big rocket. Behold, the greatest and most powerful rocket ever flown. Saturn V. The only rocket which ever carried people to the moon. This is the story of Saturn V, the only rocket to ever carry humans from Earth to the moon, from start to finish. Now, on the launch pad, Saturn V looked like this. Glorious, no? Saturn V was made of 3 main stages. The first stage was here. It was the most powerful one. The second stage is here. The second most powerful one. And then the third stage was this little guy right up here. Sitting on top of these 3 stages of super powerful rockets were the 3 astronauts. Remember them? All 3 are cramped into this tiny little space, sitting on top of 6 million pounds of thrust. So, when Saturn V launched, the first stage was the first of the stages to light up, of course. And so, when that happened, all 5 of these giant rocket engines would light up at once, and the rocket would lift off of the ground like this. Alright? This first stage would fire for less than 2 minutes. And after about less than 2 minutes of firing, our astronauts would be at the edge of space. When the first stage ran out of fuel, it would simply become dead weight. The engines couldn't fire anymore, and so it was just a big empty gas tank and some engines which weren't working anymore, so they would be disconnected and they would fall back to Earth, land in the ocean. That leaves us with the second stage. Smaller rocket engines, less powerful, but then we've been flying for more than 2 minutes now, and so we're on the edge of space. There's less air resistance, gravity is less strong now, and so the engines don't have to be as powerful. They fire, we get higher and higher and higher until this stage also runs out of fuel and becomes dead weight. Rockets have nothing to do with dead weight except to release them and let it fall back to Earth. So now we're left with the third stage with one dinky little rocket motor here, but that's okay because we're in space now. We're not surrounded by air, so that's not slowing us down. And the force of gravity is a lot lower too, so we need less energy to keep moving. This stage fires, it runs out of fuel, it becomes dead weight. You can probably see what's happening next, right? The third stage breaks off, falls back to Earth. That leaves us with this little piece. The astronauts are still having the ride of their lives right up here. Underneath them are the 2 components of our spacecraft which are actually going to go with them to the moon. If I get rid of these white bottom pieces here, I'll be able to show you what's hiding inside. Alright, there we go. There we go. Hiding inside those white pieces was the Lunar Module. So it's attached to the spacecraft like so. We started with a giant rocket. What we're left with now that we're in space on our way to the moon is this little contraption. Lunar Module, Service Module, Command Module. And those 3 astronauts are packed in tight into the Command Module. Right, now we get rid of this top piece, which is called the Launch Escape Tower. That's there to save the Command Module in case the rocket below them starts to blow up, but since the rocket below them isn't there anymore, they don't need it. So here we are on our way to the moon. Command Module, Service Module, Lunar Module. We're flying there, we're flying there, we're flying there. When we get to the moon, lunar module disconnects. 2 out of the 3 astronauts ride in the lunar module down to the surface of the moon, while the 3rd astronaut stays all by himself in the command module in orbit around the moon. Meanwhile, while he's in orbit, the 2 astronauts down here get out of their lunar module, walk around on the moon for a little bit, do some science, plant the American flag, learn a lot, say some famous words. Then they finally get back into the lunar module, back inside now. The lunar module itself splits into 2 pieces. The part with the legs stays on the moon, and this little compartment flies back into orbit, carrying those 2 astronauts inside. In orbit, it joins up again with the command module and the service module like this, and we fly back to Earth. Once we get to Earth, the story's not quite done, but we're almost there. Back in orbit around Earth, we need to get rid of a little bit more dead weight because we don't want to be falling out of control onto the ground. We get rid of the lunar module. The astronauts have moved back into the command module now, and this is what we have. Then we get rid of the service module because we don't need its engine anymore. We're already back at Earth. So all we have left is this. 3 astronauts packed in tight on our way back through the atmosphere for a soft landing in the ocean. We rotate like this with the heat shield pointed toward the atmosphere, and we fly down through the air. The air compresses in front of our spaceship, and that makes it really, really hot, so it bursts into flame. The whole compartment gets super, super hot. Good thing there's a heat shield. Until finally, we punch through the upper layers of the atmosphere, and our parachutes come out. We land gently in the ocean, and our flotation devices emerge. Now here we are, floating in the South Pacific, nice and gently. We come out of the door. A helicopter from the Navy picks us up, and we go to an aircraft carrier where we are hailed as heroes. And so, from start to finish, we go from a giant rocket, largest ever launched, and so forth. And what we're left with at the end of the mission, this little thing. A triumph of engineering. There'll never be another rocket like it. Thanks for watching. If you have questions, you know where to find me. Email me.